Hello. Hello, everyone. I'm George Harris. I'm the sales director from Cyprus Move. I'm joined by my colleagues today, Hayley Harris, Chrysanthos, and Robert, and I'll explain who they are in a minute. Just to explain how this webinar is going to run. You need to be aware that the webinar is being recorded. So if you don't want to appear on the recording, please leave now, because it is by default, and we're going to basically enable this on our website later and on other sort of media that we can sort of transmit it on. So feel free, obviously, to leave if you don't want to be on the recording. With regards to the Q&A facility, obviously, we can't have people over audio asking questions during the session because it will turn into a very difficult webinar to manage. But you will be able to ask questions through the Q&A facility. And during the meeting, we will attempt to answer some of those, and we will also answer them afterwards. So don't be shy in asking questions, because that's what this meeting's really about. So that's the sort of basic housekeeping on this. We're going to try and keep to the best possible time as we can keep to, and we're going to start now. So we'll hopefully you can see my screen and the slide deck. Right. Okay. So introductions. I'm George Harris, as I've said. I'm with Hayley, who is my partner and co-founder of Cyprus Move Limited. We're joined today by Christianos Maduras from our legal partners and Robert from our wealth management company. And both Christianos and Robert will be doing a session today on their various subject matter in the agenda. So I'll just cover off very briefly. So I'm giving the introduction now. I'm going to talk about a little bit about Cyprus Move. I'm not going to give you a hard sell about what we do, because that's not what this session is here for today. But I'll tell you a little bit about us. I'll also tell you why we decided to move to Cyprus, because lots of people are interested in why people make that decision, because it is a life-changing decision. And then we're going to ask Christianos to present two things, really. One about how non-EU citizens can move to Cyprus. That was going to be Anastasia, our solicitor, but unfortunately her car is stuck en route back home. So Christianos is going to do that. Then it's going to be followed by Robert, who's going to talk about the financial benefits of moving to Cyprus, because that's one of the key reasons why we moved here. And we're based in Pathos, by the way, in case I didn't mention that. And then Chris is going to then talk about a bit more about what's involved with purchasing a property here, because lots and lots of people are interested in that for their relocation, but also for investment purposes. And then we will leave, hopefully, some time at the end to really go through some of the questions and answers that may have been submitted during the session.
Can I just add, sorry, George,
yes,
that Anastasia has made it home and she will be joining in 5 minutes.
5 minutes, yeah.
Right, well done, Anastasia. Well done. Right, okay. So let's talk about, first of all, who we are. We founded Cyprus Move in 2025. They said this year, but of course it's 2026 now. In 2025, and we did it really because when we moved to Cyprus in 2022, so we've been here nearly 4 years, we started to get a lot of questions from our friends, family, their associates, people we got to meet here. How did you manage to move to Cyprus? What's involved with doing it? And can you help us? And over a period of time, we did that. And it became... I wouldn't say it became a problem, but it get to a point where we thought, well, actually, this is a part-time job, or not even a full-time job, really. And based on the benefits of what we are trying to do for our clients, we thought that we're gonna formalize this into a full-time business, and that's what we did in May of last year. And we've been obviously trying to build a business ever since that, and it's been very successful to date, to the point where we get lots of people on webinars like this, and we are now moving forward with helping people moving to Cyprus. And also we have thousands and thousands of properties on our website as well. So there's been a significant progress in the last 6 to 7 months. Our background, though, is in project management. Now, the reason that's very applicable, moving to Cyprus, and Hayley, feel free to chip in here, is a complex task. It needs proper management. It's very time consuming. It can involve, if you're not here, a lot of back and to with travel, arranging things. And, we've got to a point where we are able to manage that for our clients very effectively because we are based here. We've got a lot of partnerships in place with people like the people on the call today and many others, by the way. And we treat it like a formal project. And from a relocation perspective, Hayley is our senior relocation manager. That's her job, to manage your relocation from an end-to-end basis. So we partner, in order to facilitate this, we partner with a number of organizations because we can't do all this ourselves for obvious reasons. We're not legally qualified. We're not lawyers. We're not certified tax advisors and wealth managers either. So obviously two of the people on the call today do fit that remit absolutely appropriately. We also work with the main shipping agents that ship goods out to Cyprus, for example. We also work with currency providers for currency exchange. We work with car hire specialists, so people can hire cars out here. We work with insurance providers, so you can get health insurance out here, car insurance, obviously property insurance as well. And many other service providers who we trust and are independent generally. So there is no issues really with a level of competence and trust in the services that we provide. Any other sort of people who we partner with, Hayley, that I might have missed?
I'm commenting on everybody's comments at the moment. There's been some issues with sound and people have started asking questions. So
right, okay, sorry. Anyway,
all I would add is that I know when we decided to move, we both worked full time, and that yes, it became almost another full-time job trying to manage doing everything, which is why we are doing what we're doing. Absolutely.
So we've also, and I'm going to talk about this in our services as well, but we also promote properties for investment, purchase and rental for expats who live outside of Cyprus. So that's another area around what we do. So in terms of our services, and this is a very concise summary, I have to say, we do professional relocation management. We treat every relocation as a project, and that's Hayley's main remit. My main remit is to do these sales and property side of things. So one of the core things that anybody moving here needs is accommodation. They need somewhere to live. It might be from a rental perspective to start with. It could be that people are buying for just somewhere to live, or also for fast track residency, which we're going to talk about a bit later, and also for investment purposes. So on our website, we've got over 4,000 properties right across the island for sale and rental. And we partner with pretty much the main real estate agents and also the main developers across the island. So that's how we get those properties to promote. We also do investor support services. So if you're looking to invest into Cyprus with a buy-to-let property, for example, where the return on investment is pretty good, certainly compared to the UK at the moment, we can help you locate a property, purchase that property, provide some of the financial guidance around purchasing that property, and also get to a point where you can manage that property and realize the benefits from it. So that's part of what the investor support service is about. Now, through our partners, we do a lot of other things as well, some of which we've spoken about, but we do removals and shipping of all your goods, your car perhaps, or anything else that you particularly want to ship to Cyprus. And we use the main agents on the island, but we also use global companies as well. So, wherever you are coming from, we can manage that side of it. One of the key things that people obviously want to know about, and we're going to cover this today in the Q&A, is how do I how do I go through the immigration side of things? What visa am I going to be able to get based on my current circumstances? And Anastasia is going to talk about that when she joins. If not, Anastasia
She has joined. She's joined. She's with us. Thank you.
And we're going to go into that into some detail. One of the key things people want to know is, well, how can I come and live in Cyprus post the wonderful Brexit? Because that's obviously now a very big question. But there are lots of different ways that people can do that, and we're going to go into that in more detail. So we provide the not just the advice and guidance, but through our legal partners, the total end-to-end facilitation of getting your visa to live here. That's what we do. One of the other things that lots of people are interested in is how to become tax resident in Cyprus. Now that may mean you don't actually want to live here. You might just want to be tax resident here. So that's another service that we provide. We're not going to go into that too much today, but that is one of the key things that, especially coming up to the start of the tax year in the UK, that lots and lots of people want to know about. Another thing that we provide is business establishment in Cyprus, because one of the key financial benefits is if you run a Cypriot company, there are significant tax benefits with doing so and running your business through a Cyprus company. We're going to talk about financial and wealth management because that's what Robert does on our behalf. And obviously tax advice and guidance is something that anybody who's moving to Cyprus really needs to have. You should not move here without that, because you need to understand how the taxation works, how to best utilize your funds from outside of Cyprus, and to make sure that you're as tax efficient as possible. So that's pretty much what we do. And ultimately, that point there, we are that single point of contact here for your relocation and your investments. That's what our job is. And we're totally independent as well, which is very crucial. So let's answer this question. Why did we move to Cyprus? Well, I can see a few of you smiling. Tax. We were paying, and we had quite good jobs because we ran businesses and things in the UK. We were paying about 70,000 a year in tax. Plus, our businesses were generating about 45,000 pounds a year in VAT, at least, probably more actually. So we were paying the UK government well over £100,000 a year in tax, and we couldn't get our bins emptied. You know, that wasn't the main reason why we moved, because we couldn't get our bins emptied. But taxation, we were just getting over 50% of our income just waiting tax. Now, when Robert talks about tax later, you'll get a feel for that. But moving to Cyprus, we're saving a huge amount in tax, enough to pay for our accommodation here, for example. So it's a significant benefit, and depends how you set yourself up will really govern how much tax you can save. But nevertheless, it's much more tax efficient than living in the UK. Now, this was particularly important to me. I was getting to a stage in life where I need to explain. Hayley and I lived abroad. We used to live in Spain, and then we came back due to challenges with children's education and things. And then after about 10 years, I was getting to the point in 2021, during the wonderful lockdowns that we had, where I just thought I can't really, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to do something different. A change of lifestyle is really important to us. The benefits we get from that, the outdoor lifestyle in Cyprus, obviously the good weather, over 300 days of sunshine per year, is a huge reason to move here, because it's such a relaxed place to live. People will argue this, lower cost of living. Food probably isn't cheaper. Utility bills probably aren't that much cheaper. But things like when you pay £4,000 a year in council tax, the equivalent here is a few £100s a year. There are many other things that are cheaper. A prescription, £2. You know, there's lots and lots of cash savings to be had living here. Accommodation isn't as cheap as some places, certainly north of Watford, but ultimately it's a lower cost of living. Access to better services. Now, I've mentioned Getty there, which is the Cypriot healthcare system. The services here on the island are really very, very good, specifically the healthcare side of things. I was on the waiting list for a new knee for 3.5 years in the UK. I finally got a phone call a month after I'd moved to say I could come into the hospital to have my knee replaced. I said, no, thank you. Funny enough, since I've moved to Cyprus, I don't actually need my knees replacing, although they're not great, but the warmer weather helps significantly. Gessie here, it's fantastic. I've got my doctor's WhatsApp number. I can make an appointment within a day, 2 days. Actually, WhatsApp me, can I come in to see you? Yes, I can. Prescriptions, as I said, cheap. Going for an MRI scan costs you €10, but you get one next day. It's a totally different experience than it is currently in the UK, and it's got worse, I know, in the UK since we left. So, but there's other services that certainly are equivalent, if not better. And I suppose it wasn't a driving factor, but a key factor is Cyprus is an expat-friendly place. It's a very diverse culture. The Cypriots themselves are very welcoming. We've never had an issue here since we moved here at all, with any kind of, immigration issue when being an immigrant here. We respect the fact we're an immigrant, but we've never had any issues whatsoever. And of course, there's a large UK population, specifically in the Paphos area, but nevertheless, it is very expat friendly. Plus, driving the same side of the road, which lots of people are quite surprised about if they've not been here before. Other sort of things that, well, there's even UK plugs, so you can bring your own electricals if you really wished, and it would work. But it is a very friendly, lovely place to live. So, anything else, Hayley, that you'd like to put forward why we moved here?
There's lots of questions being put in the chat for different subjects, but there's a few people asking about which is the best, which are nice areas, which are safe areas for expats.
Okay.
Where do we live? So we live in Paphos, and I think can you just touch very quickly on and it's only your opinion and it changes to everybody's thoughts, but Larnaca, Limassol, Paphos.
Okay, I'm conscious of the time, but I will very quickly answer that question. There's a blog on our website, Why Did We Choose Paphos? Now, we chose Paphos for very personal reasons because there's a lot of schools here, and at the time we had a 16-year-old daughter who was supposed to go to school here. That's another whole subject matter which we won't go into. But also, Paphos is a place where there's lots going on. It's pretty busy 10 months of the year. It doesn't shut down over the winter. There's 4 golf courses around here. So personally, that's another reason why I wanted to live here. And it's not as busy as places like Limassol. Limassol's a big city, very, very busy with the traffic. It's got a different, diverse sort of expat community as well. So it's not a choice that I would make, Limassol. I think it's if you were looking to work in the tech sector, then yes, Limassol would be an ideal place. Larnaca, I quite like Larnaca. Not spent a lot of time there, but again, Ayia Napa, Petaris areas, they pretty much shut down for 4 months of the year. There's not much going on there. It's very quiet. Although the beaches are better up that end of the island, to be honest. So, you know, it's you can whatever your choice is, really, it's up to you. As far as safe, we've never had a problem at all, really. Never felt threatened on this island. She's 19. My 19-year-old daughter goes out for walks at night. Never had any issues whatsoever. Right, being conscious of the time, we need to move forward over to Anastasia's discussion around immigration. Are you okay to move forward, Anastasia, with this?
Hi, good evening, everybody. Can you hear me well?
We can.
Hi, I'm Anastasia. I'm an immigration consultant for Chrysanthos Mouvoros & Co. LLC. We're a Paphos-based law firm, but we're assisting with immigration, company formation, and real estate matters all over the island. And I'll give you a very brief, very general description of what types of residence permits are available to non-EU citizens. What are some of the basic criteria or advantages or restrictions on them? I'm not going to go in so much depth into this as it's a big subject. It's not a one-size-fits-all kind of situation. So every single case needs to be taken into account specifically, but this is the point where you can get started. So British citizens generally are subject to non-EU immigration regulations here in Cyprus. However, if you were living on the island prior to Brexit, even without registering yourselves as a resident, you can retain your residency. There is some immigration work to be done, but it does give you the same rights as it would if you were an EU citizen. So if not, however, one of the most simple and most straightforward residence permits that you can get is called the visitor permit. You will hear it being referred to also as a pink slip. Basically, you have to have income from abroad, at least 24,000 euros per year. Any type of income is suitable. Salary from remote employment, rental income, pension, company dividends, anything is acceptable. You do have to open a local bank account, bring 10,000 euros here for the beginning and then another 24 throughout the year. You do need to have at least a rental agreement here for 1 year. But this type of residence permit does not allow you to have a business here, carry out any professional activity, at least for clients in Cyprus, and does not allow you to be employed either. So if you've got the possibility of retaining your income from abroad, you work remotely, you're a pensioner, this is quite an easy and straightforward way to get started. Now, if you do want to relocate your business as well, if you want to become employed, or if you will have clients in Cyprus and you will need a residence permit that will allow you to carry out your business freely, you can obtain a work permit by way of investment. You can establish a Cyprus company, open a local bank account for it, and bring 200,000 euros into this local bank account from abroad. This allows you to employ not only yourself, but also other highly skilled employees that are non-EU citizens. The minimum salary is 2,500 euros per month, but there is some tax relief available, even though it will create some tax obligations to you. A big advantage of this type of permit is that, unlike the other residence permits that we're going to talk about, you can extend it to adult children going to university, parents and parents-in-law, and does also cut down your time to be spent here to apply for citizenship up to half. Now, one type of visa that I haven't included in the presentation because it's a bit more specific, but I will touch upon a bit, is the digital nomad visa. If you work remotely and your salary is more than approximately 3,500 euros per month, you're allowed to get a digital nomad visa. It's quite similar to the visitor pink slip that I mentioned previously, but some of the requirements like the local bank account, etc., do not apply for the digital nomad visa. So with a bit of higher income coming from employment only, you can get an easier path to residency here in Cyprus. And moving on, there's also permanent residency. Most beneficial one is the fast track one. It's by investment. Chris is gonna brush up a bit on this later on. It's his area of expertise a bit more compared to me. But by purchasing a newly built property of value of more than 300,000 euros plus VAT, and while having income from abroad, you can obtain a residence permit that is for life. This residence permit does allow you to have a company here in Cyprus, so you can take advantage of the tax situation to the absolute maximum. You cannot be employed by it and take a salary, so all your income through this company's dividends, which again is optimal for tax purposes. There's other investment paths available, but generally the most straightforward one is investing in property.
Okay. Anything else you want to cover, Anastasia?
These are the absolute basics. There's a lot more things to go into. There's other permit types as well. There's long-term planning with respect to citizenship, employment, etc., when choosing the right type of permit. So for persons who are interested in more information, what we can do is share this presentation, but if they want to reach out to you, we can offer a presentation that's a bit more detailed. It's got all the criteria, documents that they will need, some basic questions that we hear frequently answered. So at least they can have a better understanding on whether they qualify for this, whether it's suitable for them, etc.
Okay. Well, thanks very much, Anastasia. And as Anastasia said, we'll be sharing this presentation anyway. Feel free to contact us to get some more information after this webinar.
I've got one question, if we could just cover off very quickly, because a lot of people are asking this. What's the real difference or benefit between digital nomad visa and the temporary visa? Because if you're only going to stay for 2 or 3 years, what's the real benefits between them if you qualify for both?
No local bank account required for the digital nomad visa, so you can prepare everything you need for the application much more quickly. The first permit you will get on the digital nomad visa is 1 year, but when renewing, you get 2 years, which is more than you'll ever get on the visitor pink slip. So basically, it's kind of a pink slip light. It gives you something that's a bit better, but with less paperwork.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, just to distinguish it, digital nomad visa you can only do through employment or service income. If you've got pensions, dividends, rental income, etc., you can't do a digital nomad visa, unfortunately. I do also see a lot of questions popping up in the chat. So what we can do, because time is a bit limited, if whoever's got a question wants to write their email addresses as well, and we can gather all the questions at the end and send a brief answer after the presentation, we can do that.
Thank you. We will do that. We have everybody's email addresses, and we will be following up with all the questions afterwards.
Yeah,
Thank you.
We will. Thanks again, Anastasia. Now we're going to talk a bit more about the financial benefits of living in Cyprus, and Robert from Skybound is here to take you through it.
Yeah,
Robert,
thanks for that, George. Thanks for that, George. Yeah, I'll try and just talk through things in general, because I've been looking at the chat and seeing that there's obviously a lot of people in a lot of different situations, coming from different backgrounds, looking to move over for lots of different reasons. So there are benefits really for most people in those different situations. It'll obviously depend on your own financial situation, your own job, what your plans are. So I'll just echo what you've said, is that if we want to go in a bit more detail, it's always best to have a one-on-one conversation later on about that to go through the nitty-gritty. But I'll just try and give you kind of a high-level overview of that. So one of the main reasons people move to Cyprus is to retire. It's a beautiful part of the world to do such a thing, but there are also benefits in place for that. Cyprus has put in quite a number of policies really to make themselves more attractive to expats in order to get more people to come to Cyprus. And they've come in terms of tax benefits in a lot of cases, or in terms of benefits in terms of investment or tax on those kind of things. So moving to retire, there are potential benefits on pension income. So in Cyprus, they've got a 5% flat tax rate on pension income that you can choose to select. If your pension income is high, that can be very beneficial for you, or you can be taxed on the personal allowances and the tax rates within Cyprus. So depending on your situation, that can save you quite a bit, and therefore give you more of your pension income without tax to be able to spend and enjoy. And that helps with the cost of living that we were talking about before, is even if you're coming from the UK, for example, where the tax on your pension can be quite high, moving over and having more of your money free means that actually your cost of living's a lot less when it comes to that as well. I think Anastasia and so on have talked about a little bit that moving your business over can be quite beneficial, either to move your business, or you can keep your business where that is in the UK or anywhere else. And actually just having the non-dom status can be very beneficial, because you can get taxed. You can set up the non-dom status. I saw one message in the chat which was talking about whether you do need to actually register or do that. You just do a simple form, you submit that, and for the next 17 years, you basically avoid the special defense contribution tax. So that means that if you're taking dividends from your business, wherever that located, whether Cyprus or internationally, you avoid, and you don't need to pay that tax on the dividend. So that's very beneficial for whether you want to move your company, or whether you just actually want to keep your company where it is and just take dividends out of it. It can be a lot more beneficial where it comes. If you're moving for work, they also have some policies in place which are quite beneficial. So if you're earning over 55,000 euros per annum in terms of that salaried role that you have, you can apply to get 50% off tax. So essentially 50% of your income is tax-free. The remainder is then calculated on your on the personal allowance and their tax rates. So that is very beneficial for a lot of people. There is also a 30% rate as well if you're earning less than that, but also have some business income and things along there. In general, there's no capital gains tax unless it's the only time there is capital gains tax, which is based on immovable property in Cyprus, or investment funds that hold immovable property in Cyprus. Then there is capital gains tax in cashing in any of those, whether that be property or a financial asset which has Cyprus property inside of it. There's also no inheritance tax or wealth tax in Cyprus. Then in terms of creating tax residency, so that's the important part as well. There are two ways of doing that: the 183-day rule or the 60-day rule. 183 days means just you spend the vast majority of your time in Cyprus, that you're either retiring, working, living in Cyprus. You will then become Cyprus tax resident, and then you can potentially benefit from these. You can also do that on a 60-day rule if you're planning to live around the world as well, but want Cyprus as your tax base. There are certain characteristics that you will need to fill for that. So that in terms of those, you either have to be employed or have a business. You have to have a permanent residence in Cyprus. There are a number of other things which I won't go into too much detail, but you can set it up there. I've touched on the non-dom status already. That also, I'll just go back very quickly on that 50% and 30% tax benefit. That is also for 17 years as well for income from salaried or roles in Cyprus, where it comes to that as well. And UK pensions, and it says UK pensions, but it does also fall under any other pensions across there, as long as there is a double taxation treaty between the country of origin and Cyprus. So these are just kind of rough overviews in terms of examples of those benefits for if you are employed in Cyprus and you're looking for those 50% benefits, what that could really mean. And in terms of the 50% and the 30% benefit, and then an example really on that non-dom status, if you're taking a dividend from your business, and it's in the UK as an example, you're, as George kind of laid on there in terms of your business side of things, you're taking quite a huge chunk of tax if you're in the UK, whereas you can structure it potentially that you will get 0% tax on there, other than a small contribution to YESI, which is about 2.75%, where it comes to that as well. Next one, I think, George. So yeah, just kind of touch on those as well. In terms of, I've touched on many of them, but in terms of investments, so not just that as well, but in terms of investments, if you've got that non-dom status, there's no dividend tax. There is no tax on interest where it comes to that, other than, once again, that YESI 2.5% tax where it comes to that. So there's a lot of ways of structuring, just depending on your situation, depending on your goals. It's a very complex subject, so I won't go into too much detail. There were a couple of questions I think on there with James and Enrico coming from the US, and whether we can help with that. I think Hayley touched on that they certainly can help in terms of the moving. In terms of the finance side, myself, I'm not Series 65 qualified, but Skybound does have an SEC regulated entity. So I do have colleagues who will be able to help you with that as well. Maybe not me directly with Roth IRAs and US situ assets, but we can certainly help as a group. And I've got a number of colleagues that will be able to help with that. Any other questions that I didn't touch on?
So Robert, we always advise our clients to seek professional help from people like yourself when they're moving over here, because it is a big life-changing change, and really you do need to structure your finances in the most appropriate way. So obviously feel free after this call to get in touch with us, and we can put you in touch with Robert and his team members who will be able to provide you with that initial guidance. Yeah,
I'll echo that, George, because as I said, it is, look, every individual is very different. Your income sources, your pensions, your investments, your financial assets that you have, sometimes they just need to be looked over. Even if you think you're in a perfect situation, just editing them a little bit or just adjusting them to be most efficient for Cyprus and these tax benefits that are on offer is the most important part. So I'm more than qualified to help you with that, and my team and the wider group is able to help with a number of different situations and client makeups.
All right, well, thanks very much, Robert. So now we're going to move over to Chris, who's going to talk about a little bit more about what's involved with purchasing a property here and the legal requirements around that and how you should go about it. Over to you, Chris.
So hello everyone. My name is Chris Santos. Everyone call me Chris, much easier. And I'm a lawyer here in Cyprus, an associate with Anastasia Vasiliou, who presented the residency part. Josh, I don't know if you will notice, I'm not sure if I have an issue with my connection. You let me know, please, because my connection was not very good the last few minutes.
You're fine.
It's all good.
Good to hear that. Good to hear that. So basically, I would also cover briefly the process of buying a property in Cyprus. And everyone basically is asking why I need a lawyer. A lawyer actually is quite crucial in transactions to make sure that everything in the transaction will flow smoothly. Your rights will be secured and you will protect it throughout. All your payments, funds, procedures that have to be followed will be done on a timely manner and on time to avoid any consequences, implications in the transaction, and any surprises throughout the process. So, buying a property in Cyprus. A lawyer starts with the due diligence checking of everything about the property to make sure that this property has not any kind of issues which are prohibiting the buyer to proceed with the purchase. Having reviewed everything and making sure that everything is in order, an agreement is drafted where the terms and conditions of the transactions, time frame, payment methods, and everything is secured. This sale agreement is signed between the parties which are not present in Cyprus to sign themselves. We can work it out with power of attorneys, which is quite common actually in transactions. Clients can even sign power of attorney without ever being in Cyprus and have the lawyer to complete the transaction in Cyprus without their presence. So everything is done with the presence of the client if needed. This sale agreement, once it's signed and following the terms and conditions of the agreement, is deposited at the land registry to secure the rights of the buyer and register basically the buyer in the records of the land registry as the beneficial owner until the title deed is transferred into the name of the buyer, so as for the buyer to become the registered owner. Having the contract lodged at the land registry is creating an encumbrance actually on the property, which is blocking any action of the seller on selling the property again to someone else or mortgaging the property or registering any kind of encumbrance. So it's quite an important step in the process. The sellers are responsible to apply and obtain the tax clearances from the tax office that all their taxes have been paid, capital gains tax is settled, any taxes connected to the municipality, the sewerage board, the water board are also checked, and we are receiving tax clearances to make sure that the new buyer will start without any tax obligations from previous owners. And we are arranging the transfer of the title deed at the land registry. Throughout the process, for the buyer to acquire and transfer funds in Cyprus, we have to check with the buyer and advise and guide about the source of funds that they will use to purchase this property, because for these funds to be accepted and credited in Cyprus bank institutions, the buyers will have to provide documents about the source of these funds. Of course, every single case is different. There are various type of source of funds, which we are ready to guide the clients to what is needed to be provided for the funds to be accepted. It's worth to mention that non-EU passport holders, they have a limitation on how many properties they can transfer into their names. We have an approval which is called the Council of Ministers approval that is required, for which the lawyer is responsible to prepare, submit an application, and get the approval for the client. This approval is, this process is quite straightforward process, and the only reason basically considering a rejection of getting this approval is for the client to have already acquired the maximum properties that is allowed to obtain.
Chris, what is that? I'm sorry, Chris, what is that maximum?
The limitation is up to 2 title deeds, regardless of share, into the name of the buyer.
Okay.
Okay. Now, there are also the limitation about the 2 properties. There are connection to either 2 residential properties, 1 residential unit and 1 shop of up to 100 square meters, or 1 residential unit and 1 office of up to 250 square meters, or land for which you need plans, building permit, etc. So it's case by case again. Okay. On newly properties, on off-plan properties and new properties which have been recently constructed and there is VAT applicable on the purchase price of the property, for those units that the clients wish to keep for themselves and use it as their own residency and not rent it out, subject to eligibility, of course, of the property, the clients are allowed to apply and obtain a reduced rate VAT of 5% instead of 19%. The limitation basically about this reduced rate VAT is that the client who is buying the property has to use this property for themselves and their family only and not rent it for a period of 10 years, starting from the day they accept delivery of the property. Of course, the clients are allowed to sell it at any time. The clients are allowed, if they decide halfway through the 10 years that they want to rent, to inform the government that from now on I want to rent it. I don't want to use it as my main residency. And they are allowed to apply to the government and pay the difference of what they have been benefited from using the property with the remaining period which they have not used the property, pay the difference VAT office and rent it out. When selling a property now, there is a 20% capital gains tax on the net profit. There is no time frame limitation on that. Through the recent tax reformation for which we are waiting the publications, the official announcements from the government, there are some reformation in terms of tax relief amounts which you can use when you are selling a property. Overall, the capital gains tax of 20% is on the net profit. So we are taking into consideration the purchase price, if the VAT has been paid, the VAT, inflation throughout the years, first sale tax allowance, which has been increased with the new with the tax reformation recently, and some other options that the seller have in order to calculate whether there is any profit or loss in a transaction, which is carried forward to the next transaction. Also,
So Chris,
one
sorry,
important...
Chris.
Yeah.
This is quite a complicated subject, so I just want to be clear on a couple of things.
It is.
If you're buying a property and it's an eligible property for your own residence, you can apply
Yes.
for 5% VAT instead of the 19%. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so that's good. So, and if you wanted to buy a property for investment, that wouldn't apply, and that's the 19%. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
Okay, thank you.
So the
Can I
criteria
ask-
and eligibility of the 5% is connected to your obligation, basically, to use it for yourself and not rent it out to generate income.
Okay.
Can I ask one question, Chris, that's come up in the chat? Is a person who is applying for the category F permanent visa more likely, I've lost it now in the chat, I had it, more likely to be approved, that visa, if they are purchasing property as opposed to any other ways that you can apply
Renting,
for?
actually. Yeah, the other option is to rent a property in category F, the permanent residency category F. Usually, the buying a property, it shows, of course, better your intention of living, residing in Cyprus. So yes, category F is more beneficial to buy a property rather than rent a property. However, for category F, at the moment, I wouldn't touch it. The reason being that the category F program, before COVID, there was basically the applications were examined on a meeting that was taking place few times per year. However, after COVID, there was a very big gap of time when no meeting has taken place. And at the moment, an application for permanent residency category F will take minimum to be examined 5 years from the date of the submission of the application. So until the government will catch up, I wouldn't, and this is one of the main reasons we have not added this option, because it's not practical, waiting for 5 years, of course, for a permit to be approved.
Yeah, there's some interesting
So-
comments in the chat here.
I know.
Someone says you're more likely to get a telegram from the king before you'd get that visa.
Yes, I
Yes.
saw that. That made me laugh. You may touch on this. Sorry, Chris, but I think one of the things that I get asked all the time about is how long does it take to buy a property in Cyprus, resale or new? in terms of the legal process you have to go through? What's the timescale?
Okay, there is a difference between actually the new property with the resale property. The reason being that on a resale property where you are transferring immediately the title deed into the name of the buyer, more time is needed. In terms of off-plan properties and new properties, because the legal structure that is followed in terms of title deeds is that the property, which forms part of a project, of course, the project has to be completed, the construction of the project. The developer has to apply to get the certificate of final approval, and then the developer is applying to get the title deeds issued for the said project. This process is taking more time. So when you are buying an off-plan property, you are securing yourself, of course, by registering your sale agreement at the land registry and be registered as the beneficial owner until you get your title deed, but you don't get the title deed immediately. So I would say that for the off-plan properties, the time frame actually is quite fast, depending, of course, on the readiness of the clients to transfer the funds immediately, because there are clients which are asking for more time and so on. In terms of resale, the process that actually is at the moment taking more of the time for the transaction to be completed is the application for Council of Ministers. The reason being that due to the very big high demand of British who are investing in Cyprus, before Brexit, actually British did not need the Council of Ministers. After Brexit, Council of Ministers is needed. So the volume increased very much, and the time frame has been expanded. So we are considering about a resale transaction for a process to be finalized around 4 months.
Okay.
Around 4 months.
Okay.
Okay.
That's good to know.
Okay. Yeah. They are trying. The government actually is trying to minimize these time frames in terms of buying the property and the Council of Ministers. The Minister of Interior has announced that there are things that basically will start to be considered in order to make these procedures more effective and to limit a bit the time frame that is required, which is something that we are expecting, so as to make the life of everyone easier, for the procedures to be completed in a timely manner in reasonable time frames.
Okay.
Okay. For the permanent residency by investment, Anastasia has already mentioned about some points about the permanent residency by investment in property. Permanent residency, PR, we call it, in property is the most common one, which requires a minimum investment of at least 300,000 plus VAT. Resales are not allowed and applicable into this program of residential units. Of course, you are allowed to use the reduced rate VAT to use the property for yourself. An applicant who is actually granted the permanent residency with a minimum stay of 6 months continuously in Cyprus is eligible to be registered with the National Health System and get the free medication, the cheap free medication actually that our health system is offering. In terms of requirement for residency in Cyprus, the PR program is actually quite flexible, because the only requirement to maintain the status of the permanent residency in terms of residing in Cyprus is to visit Cyprus at least once every 2 years in order to keep your status. As for the permanent residency program itself, there are some other requirements which are annual or every 3 years. Basically, you have to prove that the property which you have purchased and invested in to get the permanent residency, you have to prove every year that you keep this property, of course, because it's your vehicle to get the PR status. There are some other requirements which we can give in more detail, of course, to any client and any person who is interested to find more about this process.
Okay. Is there anything on the Q&A, Hayley, that we just should cover at this point before we move on to next steps?
Well, there's lots. I don't know where to
Yeah,
start.
I got that. Yeah, I thought there might be. Well,
I'll be busy
obviously-
tomorrow.
yeah.
George, and
Yeah.
sorry, I think there's one thing I didn't touch on my presentation. I think Craig, I think it was on there that highlighted about inheritance tax in the UK, because I know it's a big subject for a lot of people, and also a consideration for a lot of people on why they would move. So let me just clarify a little bit of that, where I think I put on there that you can potentially structure things a little bit better for inheritance tax in the long term. So the new rules in the UK have changed from domicile rules to long-term residency rules. So the new long-term residency rules essentially mean that if you are outside of the UK for 10 of the last 20 years at the point of your passing, then any assets that are outside of the UK would not be in situ for inheritance tax in the UK. So that's where the conversation comes into a lot of the time, is moving over. And if that's a consideration and a need to look at, it's sometimes moving your assets outside of the UK into an international area, or into Cyprus outside of the UK, can remove them potentially from inheritance tax purposes if you qualify for the 10 of the last 20 years. There's a number of other factors that are relevant to that, and there's a couple of little things that the government will try as loopholes to always catch you out at. So it's always good to keep an eye. One of those is important, that you have a permanent residence. You have more than one permanent residence, so one outside of the UK at least. So Cyprus, buying a property in Cyprus can be very beneficial for making sure you qualify for those rules.
Okay, thank you, Robert.
Yeah.
Well, we're nearly at the end of the session. I want to thank Chris, Anastasia, and Robert for their time today, and I also want to thank all of you who've taken the time out of your late afternoon to join this session as well. We will try and make this session available to everybody via our YouTube channel. I'm also going to put it into a blog format on our website as well.
George, there's a lot of people have asked if they can have this emailed to them. So
Yeah, they can.
I would suggest anybody that does want to have this emailed to them, please just put yes, email in the chat, and then we will send this to you. And there's lots of questions that we need to answer. We will answer them, or we'll get back to you via email.
And if you've got any other additional questions, feel free to reach out to us via email at info@cyprusmove.com. We will endeavour to get back to you as soon as possible, because that's what we try and do. We're also quite happy to arrange a 30-minute one-to-one session, really, with you. We do that for clients. You can go on our website, you can schedule a call at any time that's mutually convenient, and we will sit down and go through your specific questions in a bit more detail. And also, maybe arrange the next steps around your relocation and take it further with you. So I hope you found it all useful today. We will be doing more of these in the future. We will probably focus on a bit more in depth on a specific subject matter in future webinars. That is the plan. And we'll be publishing them via our Facebook group and also on our social platforms. So again, thanks very much, and have a good evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Thanks,
Thank you, everyone.
Chris, Robert, Anastasia.
Bye, everyone.
Thank
Bye.
you, George.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ellie. Thank you, Chris.
Have a nice evening.
Anastasia.
Thanks again, guys.
Bye.